ahead. Spoilers ahead.
I'm Max.
My name's Mike. We're gonna dune. Come on and dune. You can suck up some spice. It's gonna make you feel nice. It'll bring blue to your eyes. Come on and dune. Come on and dune. Come on and dune. Welcome to the 300th episode of Max Mike Movies.
Wait. You're not going to say Arrakis. 02134.
Send it to Dune. No, I'm not going to say that. But I could.
Missed opportunity.
So, only 4.1% of podcasts ever make it this far, and we've certainly done that. Mm-hmm. What's that say about us? Who the hell knows? Because we're here to say about them, or it. Movie this week is 2 movies. For our special No Holds Barred Blowout 300th episode, we're taking a look at a franchise at its beginning, the 2021 and 2024 adaptations of Frank Herbert's Dune. Herbert. Do you reach? There might only be 2 films in the corral so far, but that's still a lot of movie. As is always the case, despite my best efforts, over to my right is that host with the most. Most what? We don't know. Max, get that sand out of my shoe, Levine. Give us some desert wisdom, Max.
All I see is a podcast that I want to do.
Yeah, so I'm
I will podcast!
I am that co-host with something less. Mike, wait, spice comes from where? Loose. Man, oh Manischewitz, have we got a show for you today. Might go a little long, but we promise this will not be a 4 or 3 hour slog like our previous anniversary episodes.
Or like these movies.
Probably. We haven't recorded it yet. So,
yeah.
Max, do you have any thoughts on this long journey of ours? 300 episodes of...
I will never forgive you for making me do this.
Well, on that note, Dune is a monster in the realm of science fiction, and now it's trying to break into the mainstream. Again, if you count the 1984 version, which we don't.
And the 1974 version, which didn't happen.
Oh, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
Never mind the 2020, or no, 2000 sci-fi miniseries, something like that.
Something like that.
That was TV. We don't do TV here on this show. But for right now, we're going to make a little change up. Instead of doing the poll question here, we're going to bring it around at the end to see how you, our dear listeners, compare to us, the 2 bums with the mics.
We can't do that. That's a violation of tradition. It's violation of ape law. It is not the way.
I edit this monster, and I can do whatever I want.
Curse you and your editing powers.
I can edit you right out. But before I do that, let's dive right into...
the facts.
Budget. $165 million. We're only talking Dune Part One.
Yeah.
That's, and to be fair, for what they're showing, that seems actually a pretty reasonable price to me, because some Marvel movies cost a lot more, and I don't know if they deliver as much. So, yeah. Take. Well, remember, this movie was released right in the middle of COVID. And while it was shown in theaters, it was simultaneously released to streaming services as well. And yet, it pulled in 407 million big ones.
Yikes.
Yeah. So we've seen this kind of thing before. Take a story and conveniently split it into separate parts, but film it together so it costs less. Well, they didn't do that with Dune. Seems it was too big a gamble, so the studio did not greenlight the second movie until after opening weekend of the first. This was director Dennis Villeneuve's dream project. He's been wanting to do a faithful adaptation since reading about David Lynch's version in the pages of Starlog, Cinefantastique, and other such magazines. He read the book when he was 12. Before he tackled the adaptation, he wanted to do a couple other science fiction films first, such as Arrival and Blade Runner 2049. And so, he did. Good for him. The language of the Fremen isn't French or Arabic or anything like that. It's a totally real made-up language. And it was made up by one of the experts, David J. Peterson, who also made up the languages of the Dothraki and the Valyrian from Game of Thrones. Bree Yark! stormtroopers.
That's orcish.
Yes, supposedly.
Sort of.
I still
Deeper.
have to find that quote. Yes, very, very, very deeper. Hans Zimmer, the composer for this movie, was nearly as big a fan of the original book as was Villeneuve.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, he's good. He skipped composing for the movie Tenet to do this. When Villeneuve went off to film, Zimmer reportedly said, "Don't fuck it up." Upon his return, when he handed the footage over to Zimmer to compose, Villeneuve countered, "Don't fuck it up." Such friends. Speaking of old Hans, that is indeed him walking around with those bagpipes when the Atreides arrive on Arrakis. It's not him actually playing, but hey, he made a cameo. Speaking of bagpipes, you might wonder what the heck they're doing here. Well, the origin of the bagpipe isn't known, and there are versions of them depicted in ancient Middle Eastern cultures. Don't know if that means there's a connection to ancient Greek culture, though, which brings us to the name Atreides. It's meant to harken back to an ancient Greek king, Atreus, character right out of the Iliad. Strangely, it is not meant to be connected to Atreus, the kid from Neverending Story.
Yeah, the House of Atreus is a big deal in Greek mythology. It's pretty much a cursed house, and bad stuff happens to everybody in it, like Menelaus, Agamemnon.
Oops. Well,
Yeah,
that has no
whoopsie-doo.
bearing on this story, of course.
No.
Yeah. This is not the first time Dune was meant to hit the silver screen. The first one was proposed by director Alejandro Jodorowsky back in the 1970s. And if you want to see what a trip that would have been, check out a documentary called Jodorowsky's Dune. No, seriously, check it out. It is very, very cool. And there's going to be a part of you that's going, I want to see that movie. I want to get high and I want to see that movie. Or either that or I don't want to get high, but I do want to see the movie, because that would be scary. There's a distinct feel of Middle Eastern, especially Islamic culture in this film.
Good boy,
Oddly,
yeah.
the term used for Paul, Kwisatz Haderach, is from the Hebrew Kabbalah, who will win, and meant shortening of the way.
Yep.
This refers to a power ancient rabbis were said to have, which allowed them to travel great distances in the blink of an eye.
Yes, it was called walking.
No,
Totally was.
no. You might well
Yes,
ask
the actual
why-
phrase, but the actual term actually is Kvitzat Hadarech.
Close enough. You might well ask why the Fremen still suits were, shall we say, not the color of sand, which would make them harder to find in the dunes. Well, because that way they'd be easier to see in the movie. That's why.
Yeah.
We almost got a Sting cameo. He played
Aw.
Fade in the 1984
84.
adaptation, but alas, the character was cut at the last minute. Sad.
Aw.
Very sad.
Very sad.
So, hey, this story takes place in the far future. The year is stated as being 10,191, in fact, except the part they leave out is that they started counting after interstellar travel became a thing, and that's estimated to be around 13,161 AD. So, wow, we're a lot further ahead than I thought.
Yes, but we
Yeah.
still use sealing wax.
Well, we'll get to that, I'm sure. Dennis Villeneuve claims that the original Star Wars was more than influenced by Herbert's book. To that end, he said his Dune will be like Star Wars for adults. Ouch.
Ooh.
Well,
Of course, he doesn't like sand. It's coarse and rough, and it gets everywhere on the lake by Naboo.
there is a lot of sand in Star Wars.
Yeah, there is. There is an awful lot. And I'm sorry. The Sarlacc pit does sort of bear a strange resemblance to a sandworm.
Or the Spanus. But Paul Atreides is meant to be 15 in this story, which is a good thing, as the actress playing his mother is actually only 12 years older than the one playing Paul. Yeah.
Very
that's
early
at Chris'
pregnancy.
house.
Yeah.
Oh, and many, many more. But let's have Max bring us some trivia about the book, since this
yes.
is an adaptation.
This book was actually written in English. Yeah, by an American guy. Yeah, this
Wow.
book. Yeah, it was Frank Herbert. Herbert. Yes. Originally, this was published in Analog Magazine in serial form from 1963 to 1965.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was sent out as a book to 20 different publishers and was rejected by every single one up until it was sent to a Philadelphia-based operation called Chilton, which was known for such great science fiction works as Motor Age, Jeweler's Circular, and Dry Goods Economist.
Ah.
Yeah. Now, I imagine these other publishers felt pretty friggin' stupid because this book has been translated into 20 languages and sold over 20 million copies, more than any other science fiction book in history.
Oops.
Yeah. Whoa. Herbert ended up writing he wrote exactly 6 Dune books before his son Brian Henson took over.
Brian Henson?
Oh, I'm sorry, Brian Herbert.
You're not.
Yeah, he wrote. He wrote about another 35 or so. But Herbert wrote at least a dozen, actually, literally 18 other books that no one remembers.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Changing the ecology, that whole theme in the book came from an unpublished article about stopping the movement of sand dunes with planted grass. The politics of this came from Herbert's time as a speechwriter for a U.S. congressman. The Islamic influences, and a couple of entire sentences, come from a book called Sabers of Paradise, which is a book based on the Islamic rebellion in Chechnya. A lot of the psychology in this, and you can see it, comes from Carl Jung. You know, the whole thing of the collective unconscious, past memories, all that stuff.
Oh.
It's a heck of a rabbit hole to go down, but it's interesting to check out. This book won both the Hugo and the Nebula Awards.
Ooh, that doesn't have much.
Yeah, but it was not a big commercial success initially. Its fan base built up slowly over the 60s and 70s, circulating in squats, communes, labs, studios, anywhere where the idea of global transformation seemed attractive. There are many who argue that this is the greatest science fiction novel of all time. You can make your own judgment there. And a lot of this, by the way, the Fremen culture is based on that of the Bedouin Arabs. And Paul's journey itself was based very heavily on the story of T.E. Lawrence, which we all know from Lawrence of Arabia.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I know. Hard to believe.
I did not see
believe.
I did not see that coming. Wow.
Lisan al-Gib, Lawrence.
Yeah.
There's more, but I don't want to eat up too much time.
Okay, well, thanks, Max, but I got to recap this beast.
Ooh,
let's see if I can. Let's see if I can whittle this down a bit, because this is a 2.5-hour movie. It's the future, way, way in the future.
Where you and I will spend the rest of our lives. I'm sorry, I couldn't help it. I couldn't help
your
it.
Chance.
Sorry.
Start again. It's the future, way, way in the future. Human civilization spans the stars and is governed by a giant galactic empire. Boy, that sounds familiar.
Wait a minute.
Below the emperor are the noble houses, and these each control various things. One of those things is the planet Arrakis, on which can be found spice. And spice, well, that's a very special thing indeed.
Ooh, yeah.
Apparently, it's a health drug, a hallucinogenic, and is the only thing which allows for interstellar travel. The noble house that's been controlling it, House Harkonnen, has been booted out by the Emperor in favor of House Atreides for stuff and reasons. And so the Atreides must move to Arrakis and take stewardship. This does not please the Harkonnen, but hey, what you gonna do? The Atreides are Mom, Dad, and Paul. Dad's just a dude, but Mom is a member of the Bene Gesserit, a group of women who command powers, one of which is known as The Voice, not the talk show. And they have the ability to command others to do their bidding. Maybe it is that talk show. Against their traditions, Mom has taught Paul in the ways of the Bene Gesserit because she believes he is going to be some kind of savior. Why she thinks this is anyone's guess. The Atreides show up on Arrakis, get shown around, told about the native people, the Fremen, with whom the Harkonnen have been having no end of trouble. Atreides says he's going to make a big change and ally himself with the Fremen and not try to subjugate them as has been done in the past. Things are looking rosy. When suddenly the Harkonnen show back up and, with the help of some treachery, kill nearly everyone and take back Arrakis. Only Paul and his mom escape, and they have to flee into the desert, hoping to find the Fremen. This they do, but they're not initially welcomed. They're going to be taken in to be questioned, but one Fremen doesn't want this and challenges Paul's mom, whom he's sure he can beat in single combat. Paul steps up to champion his mom and, changing the result of a vision he's had of this very fight, lets go of his former self, somewhat, and wins both the fight and the respect of the Fremen. A woman he's seen constantly in his dreams appears and leads the group to the hidden Fremen camp, the first step of many towards Paul's awakening. Partly, the end.
The film.
So, Max, we're going to take a look at this movie from two different angles. On the one hand, I'll represent the audience that has not read the book, and you, because you have, will represent those coming to see an adaptation. Does that sound good?
No, I hate it. The show is off.
Does that sound good?
The show's off. We're not doing it.
Put your hand in the box, trailer. Max.
No. Owie, owie, owie. Okay.
Needles, Max.
Keep that everlasting gobstopper or whatever it is away from me.
So this movie came out at a weird time. It came out at a time when no one was seeing movies because you couldn't.
Because, death and stuff.
Yeah. So did you, when it first became available, did you watch it at home?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I first saw it. In fact, I think I've only seen the first movie on the small screen.
I think it was actually possible to see it on the big. I mean, obviously they
released it simultaneously on streaming and in the theaters.
We just didn't want to die.
Yeah.
Something
that upset Monsieur Villeneuve no end.
So it's his bumbling.
It was also bumbling as far as he was concerned.
Yeah, I did too. I remember staying home and we made it an event. We turned all the lights off and we sat and watched a movie. And I got to say, if nothing else, this film, not its fault, probably changed movie-going culture in a serious way.
How so?
I think there's been a lot less people going to the theaters in general these days, and I think part of the reason is, well, we're stuck at home, might as well buy a big TV. Gosh, this is a lot easier and less noisy than going to the theater. Maybe we'll just do that.
I've heard that argument before, not so much about this movie, but about the pandemic in general.
Yeah.
That the pandemic has dealt a very serious blow to movie theaters that they still have not recovered from, and some argue they never will recover from.
I'll say they do a better job recovering from it if there are, how to put this bluntly, more movies I actually want to see coming to theaters.
Maybe a few less sequels and remakes.
Yes, please. Lots less. So, do you want to start with the cast like we usually? This is a big cast.
This is a very large cast. We may have to either leave some people out or give them some short shrift. But yes, how about we start with Timothée?
I don't know how to pronounce his name. It's so dumb. I think it's actually just Timothy. Yeah, I've seen some people call him Timmy.
Yeah, some will call him Tim.
Yeah, Timmy.
Timmy, has he fallen down and broken his leg and Lassie has to get help?
No, I think he's just starring as Paul Atreides.
Okay.
So, what do you think of him as Paul Atreides?
He needs a sandwich.
Well, he's supposed to be 15.
He's a whisper-thin lad.
Well, that's the rage these days.
I know.
I guess all the girls go goo-goo for, 90-pound weaklings.
It is kind of hard to buy him as 15.
Oh, I'd say it's impossible to buy him as 15.
At least they don't try to tell us he's 15.
No. I often can't tell how I feel about him. And I think it has to do with the character and the way he's written. Because Paul does not evince a lot of emotion until suddenly he does. And when he does, it's like he's waking up. And is that not kind of part of the theme of his character? So The
sleeper wakes. It's a big thing in Doom. Yeah. It's a difficult thing. That's one of the problems with adapting this book is a lot of Paul's character is interior. A lot of it is inner monologue, which they tried, which unfortunately David Lynch and Dino De Horrendous tried to get across in their 84 movie by having a whole lot of voiceovers.
Well, like the one that starts the film, wasn't it his mom who comes in and says, I will tell you the story, and then she fades out after like 10 minutes of exposition, and then fades right back and goes, oh, wait, I forgot.
I forgot this part, yes. But first... No, but as performances, I think he does a really good job. I think he's really good at expressing the inner turmoil. I think you have the guy who is struggling to accept what he's going to become. Yeah, I think he does. I think he does a good job. I think he does as good a job with this character as you can do. I don't think Paul is a very easy character to portray.
I might give him a little bit more of a pass after what you just said. I think that the character and the way it's written, we'll get into this a little bit more later. The character is not meant to be us. We're not meant to walk in his shoes, which is usually how these things work.
Yeah.
I think that he's at his best when he's showing more emotion. And I've seen him other things, and I think he's actually a pretty good actor. I think he's sort of annoying as a person, but, yeah. Next up for me, Rebecca Ferguson. For the first film, she is my favorite actor in this film. She's amazing.
She is terrific. So nuanced, so subtle.
Very much. She is somebody she has this vision which we don't find anything about, just her going, no, it's really him. Oh, how do you know this? It just is him. It's him. And she's also, when it comes to dealing with people that are above her, namely the Reverend Mother, shows obvious fear. And she shows fear every step of the way when she's worried that Paul might not be who she thinks he is.
Well, she's also worried that he's going to die.
Yeah.
With the whole test with the glub jabber or whatever the hell.
I think it's called the Frank box.
Yeah, the Frank box. That's the gum jabbar and the House of Pain box.
I think she's fantastic. Her levels of both fear and surety, vision, and the moments where she has utter strength. She's a very nuanced character. To me, at least for the first film, because we're only talking about the first film, the most nuanced character in this film, and I thought she was fantastic.
Yeah, she's terrific.
Zendaya.
She walks on great.
She has nothing to do in the first film.
Yeah, she shows up. That's it. We'll get to her more in the second movie.
She's pretty.
Yeah, she's very pretty.
Yeah. Oscar Isaac. I'll admit.
Duke Moon Knight.
I am not the greatest with faces, and I spent the entire film going, who is that? So that's Poe Dameron, there. And he's there.
Yeah.
Here's the thing I will give him. From the very first, my feeling was, he's talking about needing to be strong and to be the head of this and to do these great things, and he can see this future, and you can tell that's not going to happen. There is literally, for want of a better word, a sort of veil of doom about him.
You can see a vulture sitting on his shoulder, basically, with a knife and fork.
But it's subtle, and I think it's well done. And I especially like the scenes with him and his son alone.
Yeah.
So I think he does a good job.
This is, again, a case... And I am sorry, this is a Frank Herbert thing. Even in the book, the Duke is not an interesting character.
No.
And part of it is because pretty much it's hinted at almost immediately. Yeah, he's not. You cash in your chips around page 88.
It's also when he talks about his father, the bullfighter who died in a bullfight, which is apparently a great, amazing thing in the year 23,000, because whatever.
Yeah, seriously? They're still doing bullfighting? On a Scottish planet, by the way. That's where I thought the bagpipes came from. Is Caladan.
Chlamydia? Oh, yeah, well, I mean... Yeah. So I actually liked his performance, and it's like trying to fall in love with a character in Game of Thrones. It's like, just don't get attached. It's not going to happen.
Jason
in the
Momoa?
most unfortunately named character in the entire show.
Oh, wait, I know. Steven Nebraska. Yeah, he's great.
Jason Momoa, whom I don't tend to like very much. I think he does fine.
He does all right. They really beef up the character, literally, in this. I mean, Duncan, he's a major part of the book, but and this is, I know, spoiler, but Duncan dies toward the end of the movie. He is killed by the Sardaukar.
Yeah.
In the book, they sort of see him being swarmed by the Sardaukar, but obviously Jason Momoa was like, no, man, I want to beat up Sardaukar, and we get a rather extended fight scene.
I will say that I really like the scenes with him and Paul Atreides. There's obviously a real bond, and in some ways there's more chemistry between those two than anybody else in the film. But yeah,
I
except
like
him and his mom.
He's one of the only characters who gets to be funny.
Yeah.
And by the way, that does not happen in the book. There is almost no funny in the book. That is one of the things I don't really like about Herbert. You get a little bit with Gurney Halleck, but we'll get to him.
Wait, there's not even any dry humor?
There isn't even any desiccated humor, no.
Duncan, Idaho. Say, seriously? It's like when you first find out that in the original Dracula novel, no, really, Dracula is killed by a cowboy with a Bowie knife. And you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Stellan Skarsgård. I mean, when has he ever given a bad performance?
He doesn't.
I don't know.
Again, here is a character. The Baron is very two-dimensional. He's basically,
Oh no! I disagree.
Find me some puppies to strangle.
This is a human balloon. There's no true dimensions about him.
It's not. Oh yes, I am fat and grotesque, and I like to do horrible, vile things because I'm vile and horrible. House Harkonnen's major export: evil.
TM.
Yeah.
Still though, it's still in
It's a
Skarsgård.
thankless part, but he's having a good time. You can tell.
Apparently, he loved the makeup. He apparently was, oh yeah, throw all the makeup you want. I'm good with it. And it was like, okay, there's the naked fat suit, and then there's the not naked fat suit. You can guess which one took longer, but it's
we'll get to him.
almost a
I have some
thankless part.
trivia. I have some trivia on that too. He went through an awful lot in that, and hats off. He does a fine job with a very simple character.
Yeah. Then we have Stephen McKinley Henderson as Thufir Hawat, a character I didn't know had a name.
Yeah.
But he's something called a mentat. What the hell is that?
Mentat. Oh well, didn't you get that from the movie?
No, I didn't.
No, because they never even use the word.
Is it important?
Kinda. One of the big things in this, for whatever reason, is this culture is very anti-science in the book.
Oh,
They even say that.
Just in general?
In general, the Empire, because of something that happened in the distant past, I think they talk about it in the later books, I don't know, but they basically decided computers are evil. And in fact, it's in one of their holy texts, it says, "Thou shalt not make a machine to counterfeit the mind of a man."
Wow.
So, yeah.
That would have really been good to know.
Wouldn't it? So what happens is they have these guys called mentats who are in effect trained to be human computers. They can analyze data at great speed. They're based largely on logic, but not entirely. Honestly, they're never terribly well explained, at least in the first book. The other interesting thing is Paul has been trained as a mentat as well as a Bene Gesserit.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't know that.
Sure.
Yeah, Thufir Hawat is basically just in this, he's another flunky, and he is apparently so unimportant that he just vanishes between the first and the second movies.
Oh, that's not true because you totally...
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no, he's in the... What the...
No.
Oh. He plays a hat.
Yeah.
Okay. Josh Brolin is Gurney Halleck, one of the other characters that smiles in this film.
Yeah, Gurney is one of the few characters in the book who sort of has a sense of humor. He's always like he's always quoting poems or scriptures. He's also a balladeer. He's a singer. He's not just a badass warrior type. He's a musician.
I knew there was something about him I liked. I do like him. I actually, of all the characters in the movie, the one I identify closest with is Gurney Halleck, not just because I think Josh Brolin's usually a good actor, but because he's closest to many of my D&D characters. But part of me is watching Josh Brolin going, wasn't he one of the kids in the Goonies?
Yes, he was.
What happened? I guess that was a really, really long time ago.
It was a very long time ago.
But yeah, luckily he doesn't snap his fingers in this film.
Nope,
Next,
no thanks.
Now we get to a very weak performance by a usually really terrible actor, Javier Bardem. He stinks.
Talk about unrecognizable. The first time I saw it, I didn't know it was him until I saw the credits.
Javier's just amazing in everything.
And he's a
for
freaking
first,
chameleon.
he's not scary, which is nice.
Yeah. He's intimidating because he's a badass. Stilgar is nasty. He's tough, but he's not mean, and he's very reasonable.
But you get the idea that he's mean because of his environment, not because he's,
he's not
bad
cool.
guy.
No, exactly. No, that's a big thing with Stilgar in the book and in the movie is he knows when he has to be cruel, but he's not inherently cruel. He's extremely tough because he has to be to keep everybody alive. This is basically like Harry Harrison's Death World, which I'll get to later. Everything there is trying to kill you.
Yeah.
I like the little scene where he's talking to Paul. I admit this, I think this is in the second movie. Paul's just going out to be on his own in the desert for a night, and he says, watch out for the worms. Oh, and the trapdoor spiders. Oh, and watch out for the centipedes. Not the big ones, but he's like listing all the things that are going to murder you.
Yeah. So he has a very important part because he is the literal devoutest member of the Fremen, which really doesn't come into play in the first film, so we'll talk about that part later.
Yeah.
Then we have a character, I did not know this, but apparently this next character was gender swapped, which, whatever, she's there for 10 seconds, so who cares?
In the book, she's Max von Sydow.
Oh, wait.
I'm sorry. In the 1984 movie, it was Max von Sydow.
Clytus, I'm bored. Mm-hmm. She plays Sharon Duncan Brewster. That's the actor who plays Dr. Liet Kynes. A character, quite honestly, I wanted to know more about. I think her performance, as short as it is interesting enough that I wanted to know more about her, but no. Yeah.
No, Kynes is a much more interesting character in the book, but not around that much.
Then we have Chang Chen as Dr. Wellington Yue, I guess?
Yeah, I always said Yue.
Yeah. Again, don't know that much about him, but he plays a pivotal role. If you haven't seen the film, I honestly recommend that you do so now because there's going to be spoilers. It's not like it's not in the theme song. Spoiler, he ends up betraying House Atreides.
Yeah.
And he does so for reasons that make sense. Again, he's still trying to play both sides of the fence, and I would like to have known more about him. I thought as short of his performances was, I would actually like to know more. He did well.
Well, we do know that he can diagnose people by fondling their heads.
It's called phrenology.
No, that means you can tell what kind of a person they are. You have the sloping brow of a psychopath.
If you hit them hard enough, then measure the bumps, you can tell what kind of person they are. Dead.
There you go.
Then, now this guy apparently used to be a wrestler.
I think he was actually a mixed martial arts fighter, but he was a professional. He was an athlete. He was a professional fighter.
I gotta say, the more I see Dave Bautista, the more I like him as an actor.
He's one of the guys who really makes the transition from athlete to actor, and he's surprisingly good.
Yeah, there's other films he's in that I think he's even better. But here, he's playing a badass, except it's obvious it's a badass that does not have the spine that he's supposed to.
Yeah, and Atne Ute Eitbre, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, which is fine, and his part is not huge, but initially you're afraid of him, and then when you see his relationship with, shall we say, the Goodyear blimp, then you realize there's more to it than that. And I like him as an actor. I really do. We have a few other people. I don't remember Peter DeVries, played by David Malchian.
Yeah, he is actually an evil mentat who works for the Baron who gets killed off. Really
Charlotte
early.
Rampling, though.
Oh, God, as the Reverend Mother.
She's awesome. She
is so cool. You
can barely see her because she's behind a veil the whole time, but you get a real sense of power from her. And though her part, again, is not huge, I really liked her in that role. And I think really the last one that we should talk about is probably the guy who plays JMS and Oh Dear Gods. Babs Olos Anmokum, who is
that's
probably
as good as I'd get.
Probably better known as the Doctor from Star Trek Strange New Worlds, who I really like in that show, even if I don't like the rest of the show.
He has about 4 lines. He's a pivotal plot point for Paul, but that's all he is. He's a plot point.
It basically says, I can beat up your mom. Okay, I think I should take... No, I can beat up your mom. Okay,
he wants to kill Paul because Paul embarrasses him.
He wants to beat up her, and he wants to get... so he's there for 5 seconds.
Yeah. I do also want to mention Golda Rosheuvel, who plays the Shout-Out Mapes.
Oh, that's right.
And trying to fill the very small shoes of Linda Hunt, who is the best thing in the 1984 Dune. Well, I am the housekeeper!
She has that urge to manage.
Yeah.
She's a very tiny role. It's... noted because of something she does very early in the film, but there's not much there. She actually ends up just dying like most of the other people. So I'd say in general, we have a pretty strong cast, and I think Villeneuve gets a good performance out of everybody except for Zendaya, and that's partially because she's barely there.
Yeah, she has like one line.
I'm so dreamy. Yeah. Which is fine, because we can talk about her performance in the second film.
Yeah.
So, we start off with, you can see spice in the air. Yeah, I guess you can. That's cool. But, and spice production, that is a big
very
deal.
important thing, because, why is spice so important again?
Well, to be fair, they actually do tell us in this
sort of. They tell us...
They tell us it's what makes space travel possible, like the flux capacitor. But they don't tell us why. And
it also has enormous health benefits.
I guess we don't see any. And there's people on this planet that are constantly breathing and eating it, so...
Yeah, it's also a sacred hallucinogen. Kind of harks back to like the Native American tribes using peyote.
Sure.
In the book, it's a little more established, or at least toward the end of the book, because at the end of the movies, you don't know. You still don't really know. It's an anti-aging drug. That's part of it. That's why the Emperor, for one of the reasons the Emperor, who is like in his 50s or 60s, looks like he's supposed to look like he's 35. Sorry, Emperor Walken. We'll get to him in the second movie.
Walking on the moon.
It is what allows the guild navigators, of whom we hear nothing in either of these movies, to navigate space and to fold space.
And that's the big deal. Apparently, it's not like you travel. You literally take point A and point B and you shove them together. So a ship that's right there in the middle doesn't travel at all. It's just where it needs to. Oh, that's important. Hey, that'd have been nice to know.
The Spacers Guild is a major part of the plot, at least in the book. They're the ones who control all of space travel. They're prohibitively expensive. And as it turns out, they have a desperate connection to Arrakis because nobody knows this until the end of the book. They are dependent on the spice. By the way, the other thing they don't mention, spice is massively addictive.
Oh.
And when you live on Arrakis, you can never leave because you have to have the spice all the time.
Boy, do I wish they had said something about that because...
Yeah.
So my question, though, is if spice is necessary for space travel... How did anyone get to Arrakis in the first place?
So the sand is cool, right? Yeah, I don't know. They must maybe they did it in real time. I mean, this is 23,000 years in the future, and it's 10,000 years after spaceflight. It took them 13,000 years to get someplace where they just happened to bump into the one planet where there was spice. I don't know.
Let's get to that thing. There's a number of anachronistic things in here that it's like. Really? Wow, sealing wax. Okay, that's great. Why are you doing that?
Still use signet rings. Okay.
And books. Why are there books?
Now
here's the thing. Now that you tell me the thing about the computers and computers are bad, okay, I get that. I think you're really limiting yourself, and I'm willing to bet someone in that society would have said, yeah, screw this. Makes computers and has done tons of other things that you can't do without them. So
there's some explanation at some point for it, but it's not in the book. Also, you notice all the controls of everything are all analog. It's all buttons and switches and knobs and dials.
And it didn't... I'm like, wow, before I knew that we were actually more than 10,000 years, or I should say 8,000 years ahead of where we are now, I'm like, wow, really? Like, do you guys not even have voice control? Whatever? At one point, we're wandering through Castle, what used to be Harkonnen, and now is Castle Atreides on planet Arrakis. Yes. Grey Skull, yeah. And it's like, yeah, we don't have lights, so this thing's going to follow you around. This little clapper is going to follow you around, and if you need light, just... And, then it'll turn off. So the tech in this was really weird, and they don't explain it. They just want you to accept it. I will say, however, the art, set, and costume design is fantastic.
Oh, my God, this thing looks amazing. Everything in this looks incredible.
It really does.
And it really... I mean, it does... I can't say it looks like I pictured it would in the book, but it looks better, I think, than I thought it would.
Yeah, one of the only questions I have, I can't remember the name of this main city on Arrakis, City.
Arrakeen.
Arrakeen. I'm looking around Arrakeen and I'm like, how come there's no solar power? Would be a really good place for that.
I wondered about that.
Literally never any cloudy days, ever.
Yeah, well, it was written in 1963 to 65, solar power was kind of... They had a little.
It's science fiction. You're supposed to think ahead. That's the point. So, there's a few things. There's a bit of expository dialogue in the beginning, not only about spice and a couple other things, but one of them is when there's this little fighting scene between Paul and Gurney, or is it Duncan?
It's Gurney. It's supposed to be. Actually, I think it's supposed to be. I can't remember who it is in the book. It's not Gurney.
Oh, well, they have to just tell us what the force fields are and why they're different. So it's like, okay, fast is bad, slow is good. So you have to go slow to get through a force field. And why do they tell us this? Because, of course, it's going to be important later in the book when you're going, hey, how come that guy's not dead? Or
Well, it's also going to go, how come everyone's using swords?
yeah, which again, really? Okay. And I'm going to challenge this film. That giant spice harvester, no computers, really,
Yeah.
really.
Well, that's what they use the mentats for.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So their
I
mentats
don't
are
know
there
how.
turning valves and turning
Probably.
wheels and stuff. Yeah, okay, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
So, Baron Harkonnen, I don't know if there's any connection from the book to this, but when they were making him up, there's a real specific character that they were trying to mirror from a different film. Do you know who that was?
Nope.
As soon as I say, you're going to be like, oh my God. So there's actually two different characters from the same actor that they were like, oh, we definitely want to mirror this. One of them I understand, the other one I don't. One of them is Colonel Kirk? No, what's his name? What's his name from Apocalypse Now?
Colonel Kurtz.
Kurtz.
So Marlon Brando.
Yes, and the other is the Marlon Brando character from Dr. Moreau.
Oh, dear.
Apparently they
Okay.
thought, yeah, so Big Flour Dumpling is the evil bad guy. Because, yeah, I get the Apocalypse Now, although I was just waiting once for Harkonnen to go, a bug I ate with little wings. Because if you have not seen the Animaniacs riff on Apocalypse Now, you really need to.
You really
brilliant.
should. It's brilliant.
What if Jerry Lewis made Apocalypse Now? Yeah. I actually kind of wish they hadn't told us the year. I think if they had just said in the future or something like that, we wouldn't have had as many problems. And I kind of wonder why they bothered.
Nah, it's in the book. I don't know.
We also have a couple of tropes. I'm going to say overused tropes, although to be fair, the book was written in the 60s. But one of them is only the women can do this magic power thing. It's like, okay, yeah, whatever. And men are bad and stupid. Okay, we've been there,
Well,
whatever.
You gotta understand also that in the book it's different. Like the Fremen, the women, while they are badass and they're tough, the men are the ones who go off to war. The women stay in the siege or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and take care of stuff. So the book is a lot more sexist. The movie's a lot more egalitarian, but also the Bene Gesserit. Well, yes, they have magic
Gesserit.
powers.
Jesuit.
I always said Gesserit. I know.
Well, apparently it's based on the word Jesuit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which
Makes
explains
sense.
a
They
lot.
have missionaries.
Yeah.
But, the Bene Gesserit are not necessarily good guys.
I'm going to say, go
These-
right on the limb and say they're not at all.
These guys are playing the long game, but they're basically eugenicists. They are manipulating, they call bloodlines, but they're, because DNA, while it was invented, it wasn't thrown around as much as a term. They are trying to design the perfect human beings.
Okay.
And they are doing, and anyone who, they talk about pruning bloodlines, like, yeah, we don't need these guys anymore, we'll kill them off. They are incredibly cold-blooded about it all.
Well, and we'll get to their bigger part of this at the second film, because we spend the entire film not knowing an answer to a very big question, and it's quite vexing, I might say.
Yeah.
So we've got this, only the women can do this. There's plenty of fantasy novels and other novels. It's like, only the women magic. Okay, we've seen this before. We also have we have the idea of there being the one.
Ah, yeah. Whoa.
Yeah, which we've seen many times. And unfortunately, the Great White Savior, because, let's face it, people of color who live in backward societies need a white person to come and save them.
Of course. Oh, yeah, that's a big thing in the book.
Yeah, which not real fond of. And I'm not real fond of the fact that all of the people of color in this film, the Fremen, and they're pretty much all people of color, are portrayed as being kind of backwards and backwoods and like, we sit here in our little huts and stuff, and we.
They are technologically advanced, but they're very psychologically and very culturally advanced. They have a very rich and very complicated society, which again it comes across more in the book. The thing is, in the movie, they make it very much like, okay, hi guys, these are all Muslims.
Yeah.
And they are not just Muslims, they are fanatical Muslims. They are fundamentalists. They even call the guys in the South the fundamentalists.
Well, they're not technological until they need guns, and then suddenly they have them. And my question, too, is where do they get their supplies to make stuff?
They build them. They also steal stuff. They have factories in the books.
Do they?
They have settlements where they build. because they are fairly technologically advanced. It's just, as they say in the book many times, and I think they say it in the movie once, Arrakis is very hard on machines.
Yeah.
All that sand, all that wind, it destroys a lot of machines. So the native folk, in effect, have to have very simple, very tough mechanics. Also, the still suits they wear, other people have them, but the Fremen ones are always known to be the best.
Well, it's because they actually live in it, which is understandable. They mention in brief passing that they have their own ships. Mm-hmm. Okay. We see no sign at all of the Fremen collecting spice, which quite honestly doesn't really seem to be that hard. Oh, there's some.
Yeah, pretty much.
We only see, the only thing they seem to use it for is they breathe it because they have to. It's in the air. You can't get away from it.
A couple of things about that.
Wait. This, we're talking about the movie.
Yeah.
And it's in their food. Mm-hmm. I guess for stuff and reasons. They don't talk about it being there on purpose. They sort of giggle when they see the mom and Paul eating it the first time. But it does not seem to be something that's central to their culture in the movie. That being said, it made me wonder, if they're not out there trying to get it for themselves, which they're not, why are the Harkonnen bothering them? Why not just leave them alone and take your spice and leave? Nobody cares. But apparently, I guess it's part, I don't know, they don't say.
Yeah, that part is a little vague, but in the book, the spice is sacred because it is the product of Shai Hulud, the sandworms.
Product.
Yeah, worm poop.
Yeah, that's what it is. Got another question. What do worms eat?
That I don't know. Something that big moving through friggin' sand? What? Does it eat sand? How? There's no nourishment.
And also, I gotta say, you're amazing, holy creature. Brick stupid. Every single time you pound on the sand, they show up. Try to eat something that's not there and then leave.
Yeah.
Unless, could you stay on the surface long enough for like us to take the rocket worm to Galveston? Because that's basically what they're doing.
No, that's when they lift up. I mean, the way they ride the worm, it's kind of an interesting idea. They lift up the ring segment to expose the sensitive part underneath, and this worm doesn't want that part to go in the sand. So that side always stays up and it stays above the sand.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like putting a ring in a bull's nose.
That keeps the bull from wanting to go into the sand?
Yes, exactly. No, it basically, you go where I say and it'll stop hurting.
Yeah.
It's actually a very unpleasant way to control something.
Okay, glad to know that, because, I mean, they show us a close-up of the thing, but it's like, okay, I guess it breathes through its, are those little sucky holes that allow it to go through the sand? I don't know. So
I do not know what can anything that big eat?
Well,
I mean, and there are a lot of them. There's not like two. So they're all over the place.
And they're important for other things later, because...
that comes up in the second movie.
But
Water
worms,
of Life.
I understand them. I guess there's supposed to be this naturalist idea that the Fremen are more one with their environments, and the major component of this environment is the sandworm. Big question, too, because everyone's dream, and we see this, everyone's dream is to bring the oceans back to Dune. I know it's in the second film where we see what happens when you put a worm in water. Doesn't like it. What's going to happen to the sandworms if you turn the planet into like... Yeah.
They mentioned in the book they want to terraform, in effect, parts of the planet, but leave the deep desert for the worms.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can do that. Yeah, that's an issue.
Yeah. So the Atreides show up, and they're like, hey, we're going to take over, and everyone's going to be happy. And initially, when they meet up with Javier Bardem,
Stilgar, yeah.
It looks like they're making motions. I like that part. I like the fact that it's like, hey, maybe we can be friends. This will work out. Then they take a little tour of everything, and that's, pretty cool. We get to see what's going on. And then the Harkonnens show up, and they've made a deal with the Bene Gesserit, basically say, hey, since you helped us out, we won't kill the mom and Paul, because apparently they're important. Mm-hmm. And the Bene Gesserit was like, cool, you can't kill them. And then Harkonnen Vladimir there says, I didn't say I wouldn't drop them in the desert.
Yeah,
so they kill everybody.
There's a thing about the letter of the law and the spirit of the law, dude.
Well, except for one problem. So they basically escape into the desert, into nothing, and Harkonnen reasonably assumes, well, the Fremen doesn't like anybody that's not Fremen, so they're not going to help. They're out in the desert, there's nothing to eat, nothing to drink, they're done. except they keep following them and they keep shooting at them. Luckily, Paul has his Fremen finder, and use that too.
Yeah,
it points right at the Fremen every time. So I don't. Yeah, their whole pursuit and then the continuous shooting at the mom and Paul. It's like, I thought you said you weren't going to do that. Why didn't you just leave them alone? Oh, because then there wouldn't be any action in this part of the film.
We wouldn't have no picture.
Yeah, we just keep wandering and wandering and wandering. So we get to the Fremen eventually. We find out that they're from everywhere because the accents are, shall we say, varied.
Yeah.
Now, they do explain that Javier Bardem is from Spain. I know, he's from the South.
Yes, the South, yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, y'all. I'm a Southern Fremen, by cracky.
And here's the thing. You can make up an accent and have the actors do it and it'll work. A show called The Expanse does a great job of that. I really like the patois of the Belters in The Expanse. They just sort of chose not to in this, which...
Yeah.
Okay. They made up a language. I don't know why they couldn't... But
I don't know. I do not know.
Real quick, the sound mixing in the first film sucks. I was wearing headphones.
Oh, yeah.
It's
very hard
like this.
Very hard to make out the dialogue.
But then there's music! Boom, 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 boom. Although
Yep.
I have to say, I thought the music was really cool. Very evocative.
Hans Zimmer can pluck out a tune.
Yeah. And then, right after the 2 hour, 45-minute mark, one of them says, "This is only the beginning." Okay, really? I mean...
Yeah, Zendaya says that, in fact.
Yeah. I mean, we know we're going to have to wait 2 years for a film, but...
Same Dune time, same Dune channel.
Holy wah! Okay. So, when we end our first film, in a little bit of a quandary, like what's going to happen next? Is Paul going to end up being... In general, there's no first-level characters here, right? Everybody, until we get to the Fremen, is this giant NPC. And I think, honestly, it puts no more than a little distance between the audience and the story. We are not part of the story. We're observing it. That's it. How did you feel? Is that like that in the book, too?
To a degree, when Paul joins up with the Fremen, it becomes more of a thing because he's a literal fish out of literal water. And now he's in the sand going flop, 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 and opening and closing his mouth and trying desperately to work the sand through his gill. Sorry, that metaphor got away from me.
That's my fault. Somehow. Me and metaphors don't mix.
Yep,
but yeah.
Yep. There's more of it because we're sort of like, we're learning about the Fremen as he learns about the Fremen.
Right.
By the way, the Fremen, one of the tropes of the Fremen that always bothered me in the book and in the movie is they are the archetype of the noble savage.
Yeah.
Like, yes, we are brutal and, but we are one with nature and we are
one with nature, Pilgrim.
Yeah, it is so, my mother. We will ride out on our Mongol ponies.
See, this movie is just The Conqueror all over again.
Oh, Lord. Well, let's hope everybody doesn't die who was in that.
But,
yeah, but there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
And there's also a certain amount of the whole, oh, yes, and we're also very naive and childlike about our religion. Although they do point out that it's the Bene Gesserit, who are basically kind of a PR firm, have been laying the groundwork for the whole Lisan al-Gaib and the whole idea of the Chosen One for years, everywhere.
Yeah.
So that when the Kumquat Haagen-Dazs shows up... Sorry, I stole that from the parody Dune, D-O-O-N.
Desert Planet?
Yep, the desert planet where the sands are all sugar and giant pretzels roam them.
Oh, no.
Yes, and they leave behind the sacred product, beer. Anyway. Yeah, so that is an annoyance for me about the Fremen.
Yeah.
And there's very much, the Muslim extremist overtones are really kind of heavy.
Only a lot.
Yeah, kind of right down to the yells and they even, I swear to God, they do the facing Mecca when they pray thing.
Well, and there's also points where they make the sound of an animal, and my thought was, what animal?
Yeah. Now, there are
hey, did
birds
you hear that?
and
It's probably just a bird. Wait, what bird?
Now they have birds. The book talks about that. There is life
Inside.
on Arrakis. Oh, yeah, well. And there's, of course, the little kangaroo mouse.
Yeah, but like you can't make a sound like that because it doesn't make any sound. So.
Squeak, I tell you, squeak!
Yeah, sure. But do you want to do just like a quick rundown of what we think of part one?
Sure. The finish.
Do you remember what you thought when you saw it the first time?
I do. I said, wow, they got it right.
Yeah.
I thought they did a really good job.
Have you seen it since then?
Yes, I have. I just watched it day before yesterday.
Well, I meant besides for the show.
Oh, no. I'd seen it once when it came out and then for the show.
And what did you think the second time? Briefly.
I think it holds up.
Cool.
I think it works. What about you?
I saw it when it was first released. Might even have been the day it was released. And I didn't know what to think because the only version I'd ever seen was the 1984 version, which, how shall I put this? Sucked. It was going to be the second film I ever walked out on, but my friends who drove would not leave. So I had to say, and I didn't know anything about the story. And I remember thinking to myself about 15, 20 minutes in the film, I don't know who this Paul Atreides is. I hope he dies soon. Oops. I liked it. I liked the breadth of the story. I liked the details, the different cultures. I think there's a lot of great elements, the music and the art direction. I thought the performances were good. And I'm like, yeah, I would like to know more. How is this going to end? And when I watched it again, if anything, I might have liked it even a little bit better. I know we kind of, pounced on it, but it sounds like some of the problems we had were actually inherent in the book. So and some of them were part of the movie. But let's not spend too much time just yet, because we have, I think you've got some trivia to do for part two. And if you would.
The facts. The budget for this one was $190 million.
Oh.
Yeah, even
Prices
more.
went up.
Yep. But the global box office, $711 million. Almost $750 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cripes. I mean, I saw it in the theater.
You mentioned Stellan Skarsgård, how he liked the makeup. The body makeup took 8 hours to apply and 2 hours to remove every day of shooting. He didn't drink anything during shooting, and he took Imodium pills so he didn't have to poop during shooting days.
Well, I can understand that. Wow.
Stellan, I hope you're okay now, man. That's hardcore.
Man.
Lady Jessica's facial tattoos are the Bene Gesserit litany against fear that everyone always quotes. I must not fear. Fear is the little death.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's very central to her character. I mean, there's no way for us to know that, but...
Nope. When we first see Fade Rotha's fight on Getty Prime, it's shown in a black and white infrared color palette, which is apparently because the sun there is black.
Yeah, which makes sense, because...
Sure. Dennis Villeneuve says he will not release any deleted scenes, explaining, I'm a strong believer that when it's not in the movie, it is dead. I kill darlings, and it's painful for me. That is exactly what Dennis Villeneuve sounds like.
Thank you for doing that research.
You're welcome. Stephen McKinley Henderson and Tim Blake Nelson both filmed scenes for the film as Thufir Hawat and the character we never see, Count Hasmir Fenring, who is the husband of the haughty Bene Gesserit Lady Fenring, who we see on Getty Prime. Margot. And, but they were cut from the finished film, but they do get a special thanks in the ending credits, which I'm sure is a big comfort.
Hey, they got paid.
Austin Butler had to gain 25 pounds of muscle to play Fade Rotha.
Yes, he did.
And he underwent vocal training to sound more like Stellan Skarsgård, which he pulls off. He really does.
Didn't really notice it, but okay.
Yeah.
I noticed other things.
I'm sure you did. The language used by the Fremen, which you say they made up, in the book it's called Chakobsa.
Okay.
And which derives mostly from real-life Arabic. But it's also got French, Romani, Greek, Slavic, and a lot from Hebrew and Sanskrit.
Sanskrit. Lots of Sanskrit.
Yep. Dennis Villeneuve describes Fade Rotha Harkonnen as, quote, a cross between a psychopathic killer, an Olympic sword master, a snake, and Mick Jagger.
Yeah.
Jagger, by the way, had been attached to play that character in the Jodorowsky's failed Dune adaptation.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, that's right, which explains, of course, the huge livery lips. That's right. All I see is an Atreides I want to kill, all right?
Oi!
The sandworm riding sequence took 44 days to film.
Wow.
And was shot on a set measuring 90 by 24 feet. Upon first reading it in the script, cinematographer Greg Fraser thought, how the hell are we going to do that? One of the names that the locals call Paul a bunch of times is Mahdi, which is from the Arabic Mahdi al-Montathar, or Mahdi the Awaited, a prominent figure in Islam, where it's stated he will appear during the end time and cleanse the world of evil.
Okay.
Yeah, it's also a very kind of apocalyptic figure.
Yeah, that seems more likely, but, well, whatever.
This was filmed, by the way, in the middle of the Jordanian desert, and the crew had to build 18 miles of new road to transport all their equipment and establish base camps.
Yikes.
Yeah, Lady Jessica's role is very beefed up in this version.
Oh.
In the book, she kind of retreats into the background in the later parts. But Villeneuve viewed her involvement as critical. Christopher Walken, who plays Emperor Shaddam IV, and insists the spice is the secret to more cowbell.
He does not.
This is purely coincidental, apparently. But as many people know, he starred in a 2001 music video for the Fatboy Slim song Weapon of Choice, which has several references to Dune in its lyrics.
Coincidence?
Don't be shocked by the tone of my voice. Walk without rhythm and you won't attract the worm.
Ah.
Walken said he didn't know about the connection until an interviewer for GQ brought it up. None of the sets were recycled from the first film and the second film. They were all built specifically for this movie.
Well, now we know where that extra $30 million was spent.
Frank Herbert's son, Brian Herbert, called this the best adaptation of his father's work that he'd ever seen, which is not saying much.
No, not really. I didn't see that. Apparently, some people really liked the sci-fi miniseries.
I remember falling asleep during it. Apparently, according to an interview, Rebecca Ferguson said that the crew referred to the ornithopters as horny throbbers on set.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. Dave Bautista, and I gotta say, this just makes me like him more, he was urged by his agent not to film the scene when Beast Rabban is beaten and humiliated by Fade Rotha. You know, the kiss or die scene.
Yeah?
Because it would make his character seem less imposing. But Bautista said, no, I want to do it anyway. It would benefit the story by elevating Fade Rotha as the true villain.
Yeah.
Well done,
Good for you,
man.
Dave. Yeah. And he does it really well. It's a very humiliating scene.
Dennis Villeneuve does include a very small salute to David Lynch of Dune, 1984, at the start of Lynch's Blue Velvet, also starring Kyle MacLachlan. He finds a severed ear crawling with ants. Toward the end of the film, when the screen shows the dead body of Stellan Skarsgård, the camera zooms in on his ear, which is crawling with ants.
Which only made me go, where did the ants come from? Okay.
They're sand ants.
Sants.
Yeah, sants. There's a ton of other stuff, but I think that's enough.
Cool. Yeah, because you got a recap to do. You got to tell us part two as quickly and briefly and as succinctly as you possibly can.
That's not going to happen.
So don't succinctly.
Well, when last we left our intrepid hero Paul, he had just met up with those friendly freemen of the desert. But all is not well. He must fight to take the place among them. Wowie, zowie, holy cowie. And Jessica has to become the Freeman's new Reverend Mother by drinking the new True Blue Gatorade with patented Hinder 90. Okay, that is kind of a big deal.
It's
Jessica, I know, who is pregnant with Paul's sister Aliyah, who we unfortunately only see in a flash forward. I'll talk about that later. Has to drink this highly concentrated worm barf to connect with the memories of all the Arakeen Reverend Mothers who came before her. Only women can do this. Or can they?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Paul is busy falling in love with Chani, and slowly being accepted by the Fremen as the Lisan al-Gaib, the one who points the way. He chooses the Fremen name Maudib, which it translates as marketably cute kangaroo mouse, learns to ride sandworms and somehow manages to magically find hair care products in the desert. Obviously, that's what the spice's true power is. But all is not well. The Harkonnens are bearing down on Arrakis with evil plots of evilness. The Emperor is walkening all over the place, and we meet Phaedra the Harkonnen, a man so sick and twisted his own hair wants nothing to do with him. Paul is also wrestling with his destiny. He's got visions of himself as the Lisan al-Ghib, but realizes that following the path will lead to a galaxy-spanning jihad, very intentional name, although they don't think they use it in the movie. They just say holy war.
Same thing.
In his name, and that would be bad. Ooh. But then he decides, okay, we'll do the jihad thing, and leads the Fremen into battle against the Harkonnens, the Emperor, and pretty much everybody else in the galaxy. The Fremen are victorious, and Paul decides to take time out for a big knife fight with Phaedra to determine who would really make the best Elvis Presley. Phade gets stabbed, Paul declares himself emperor and accepts the hand of the emperor's daughter, and presumably the rest of her as well, but then the movie ends with the holy war starting against the other great houses. Got all that?
No.
The film.
Could you start again?
No! I have to have a lie down. Then there's so much crap in there I left out. Gurney Halleck shows up again.
Yeah.
Thufir Hawat doesn't. He's just... I guess he just died from death or something.
I think
in the book, it's a big deal.
Oh, well, he
goes to work for the Emperor. Not the Emperor, sorry. He goes to work for the Baron Harkonnen.
Well, so did Gurney. Well, no, Gurney's like a pirate, I guess.
And both Gurney and Hawat think that Jessica is the one who betrayed the Duke. That comes up a bunch.
Oh, well, no, but okay. Well, bravo, Max, for putting that into easily digestible terms. Now, I'm going to guess that you didn't. Did you? No, you didn't see this in the theater, did you?
I did see this in the theater.
Okay.
It was one of the first movies I saw post-COVID.
Yeah.
Actually, no, that's not true.
I think the first film I saw post-COVID was Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Now, the first film I saw post-COVID was the Dungeons and Dragons movie, the new one.
Oh.
We'll get, we may get to that later.
So we don't have too many additional actors I think we need to talk about.
Really.
Not just a handful. The first one I see in the list is Florence Pugh, or Pugh, or Howard,
just Pugh.
as Princess Irulan.
Princess Sarutan, yes.
That's nature spelled backwards.
Yeah, she doesn't have a lot to do, but
no.
I got to tell you, in the book, she has like almost nothing. She's like, hello, I'm here.
Is she Bene Gesserit in the book too?
She is Bene Gesserit trained.
Sorry,
they don't
Bene
actually
Gesserit. Otherwise, it's like, hey, I'm Bene Gesserit.
The Bene Gesserit show. Yeah, no, I think she does fine with a very thankless part.
Christopher Walken, all right. Is he too Walken for this part?
A little. I mean, I love Christopher Walken. I want to see him in everything.
Yeah.
But honestly, he doesn't... He has some gravitas, but I don't think he comes across as an emperor.
Not really. He cowers very well.
Yeah.
But when he talks, he still does this because he can't help it. And
Yeah.
I think you need to be very, very careful and use Christopher Walken sparingly, won't you?
Yes. Walken responsibly.
Yeah.
I think he's okay. I think they could have done better.
I found him more distracting, unfortunately, than I found him convincing.
Yeah.
So
Unfortunately, when I saw him, I just say, oh, there's Christopher Walken, not there's the Emperor.
Yeah. And then Leah Seydoux as Lady Margot Fenring. I'm glad that she's listed here, because otherwise I wouldn't really have remembered she was in this film. And actually, at this point, still don't. What did she do?
I think she slept with James Bond a couple of times. Oh, no, she seduces Phaedra and apparently gets pregnant by him.
Oh, that's right. She's... Now, wait. I forget. Is the princess Bene Gesserit, or is it Lady Margot Fenring that's Bene Gesserit?
They're both.
Okay.
Well, the princess is trained Bene Gesserit. I'm not sure if she actually... It's not entirely clear if being trained makes you a Bene Gesserit or if she just has the training. But Lady Margot is definitely Bene Gesserit.
Okay. So that's pretty much it. This is a handful, but they're just... They don't even have
But you're
names.
forgetting Austin Butler.
Oh, yes, I did forget Austin Butler as Oh, Fade Rotha. Oh,
Yeah, you and the Baron in the book. Lovely, lovely Fade.
I mean,
which I have to say they leave out entirely in the movie.
Oh, there was a relationship there?
Not so much a relation, but it's again to make the Baron in 1963 look more vile. He's always lusting after Fade, and they go, oh, he's so pretty, and he sleeps with young men, and because, of course, that's evil?
Well, if you're a young man sleeping with a young man, no. If you're an old, bloated blimp who has to fart to get around, then yes, it's disgusting. Because he almost never could touch his ground. He does later on at the end when the Emperor shows up, he makes a big point of kneeling, but it's otherwise he's just... And in the first film, I was like, someone is going to aim a dart and then he's going to whip around the room like a pop balloon.
Well, the idea is he weighs like between 400 and 500 pounds, so he wears these mass cancelers, so he only weighs about 100 pounds, so it's just easier for him to move.
Sure. Austin Butler, I think he does a great job at being horribly awful.
Yeah, he's very, very villainous, and he's very Fade-Roth, although this is something else that they leave out. There's a lot more gamesmanship in the relationship between Fade and the Baron. I get why they left it out, because it would have made this movie 11 hours long. They leave out a lot of the politics in this, and the Fade and the Baron are always sort of making move and counter move at each other.
Which, and there's a hint of that because Fade's like, why should I do what you think I should do? And Vladimir's like, I could put you on the Emperor's throne. And Fade's like, oh, Emperor's throne, that's pretty good. And then they go back to Vladimir and I'm like, and you really think you can control him once he gets there?
Yeah.
Good luck with that. So, and then there's actually a really cool scene, I'm guessing it's between Lady Margot and him and Fade, where she sort of, oh, what am I doing here? I don't know how I got here. Things just happen. Want to go into this room and find out? And we find out later what his weaknesses are, and one of them is humiliation. So you get the idea that she doms him like crazy. Yeah, so, there's definitely some little play, but I guess I'm not that upset that they took out so many of the other politics, but...
No, there's a lot of stuff, especially like with Paul and his father. There's a whole sequence where they're entertaining off-world, even just local dignitaries, and there's a lot of negotiations.
Wait. Are you suggesting that there's trade negotiations in Dune?
Yes, I think there are some trade negotiations in the book, but so far... we are pod race free.
Whew! Although we are in that environment, so...
We are.
Yeah, so that's the cast. I mean, we talked about the other folks. I don't think anybody really does anything more or less than they did in the first, except for Zendaya. I want to say that she actually develops better as a performer and as a character. And if I remember, I think I heard something to the effect of that she is not portrayed the way she was in the book.
Not at all.
Good. I really like her character in this. She is the one person standing off to the side going,
Yeah, it's like, this is not going to end well.
Well,
and she's the one who's pointing out that we want to save ourselves. We don't need the white boy here to save us.
Well, not only that, but she's like, you're just going to end up using us for your own ends. Spoiler, he is.
Mm-hmm.
And
totally different from the book. In the book, she's just like, whatever you say, Muad'Dib.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that. So good change from the book, because at the very end, I'm going to say Paul drinks the worm piss, because that's what they say it is.
Yeah.
It's blue. Although why they ever need to piss, I don't know, because it's not like there's any water for them to drink, but, well,
Yeah, that's the other thing. Apparently, the way you get this stuff is you have to drown a baby sandworm. Who figured that out?
I don't know.
What was there for them to drown in that they knew that?
Yeah. Because, supposedly, the way they're going to bring back the seas to Arrakis, which they point out in this film, the actual Fremen word for this film, this planet, is the name of the film. It's Dune.
Yeah, Dune.
And then they never use it again, because whatever. But apparently there are vast amounts of water that are underground, and which is one of the places that the Fremen get their water, or some of which is sacred. You can't touch that water. Part of me is like, really? Okay. Hope nobody dies of thirst when there's this sacred. Okay, fine, whatever. But okay.
So you got this big underground lake. It's like, okay, I get that it's underground. It's cooler, but you must lose an awful lot to evaporation.
It's like it's covered or anything.
No, it's just a big swimming pool.
But yeah, so you can't drink the worm piss if you're a guy. But of course, Paul comes back. No, don't. Whatever you do. No, don't do it. No, don't drink the worm piss.
Bad.
And then he, quote unquote, dies, which of course is not what happens. And my guess is that if you want to extrapolate from here, the reason they say men can't handle this is because in the past, men drank this, their vital signs went so low everyone thought they were dead, they buried them, and that was it. They died under the sand. Whereas it turns out
That's
if you
possible.
let one of them live, they actually would have been fine. But
Maybe.
then we have...
They do. He does need help coming back. In both the book and the movie, in effect, Chani is the one who calls him back.
Yeah. Which...
But it's a big deal because he is entering the place in the mind that no woman can go, apparently. I guess it's the male collective unconscious, or, the thing that insists we have to own many different kinds of screws.
I have this feeling it just has this smell like corn chips.
It just smells brown for some reason.
Not a good place to be. Which they don't even mention that it's the male. Whatever. He's the chosen. Blah blah blah. Of course, I like the idea that the I think it's kind of a little weird and shows a little lack of foresight. The Bene Gesserit is like, oh no, we have enough. He didn't work out. We have somebody else. We have somebody better. And I'm like, Fade? Really? And I think
they keep saying yes, he's crazy, but we think we can control him.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah. Bene Gesserit are kind of arrogant that way.
Yeah, but I really like the relationship between Chani and Paul or Muad'Dib or whatever, because all through it she's like, I want to believe, but I just have this really bad feeling you're going to screw it up for everybody. And in the end, Paul, he at one point says to her, don't worry, I'll always love you. And if that's not a bad sign, I don't know what is. And then he's like, hey, I'll marry her right in front of Chani. And it's like, so she understandably gets pissed and walks off because she's basically like, everything I said that was bad was going to happen is happening. I'm leaving this film. I am gone. And I do not blame her. But I like that. It adds an extra layer to the film that I think was missing. It's the most human element of the film. She's the closest we have to a character that represents us, the audience, the unbeliever, the like, what is going on? Why are you people so crazy? And
the one who realizes this is kind of a setup. I mean, she knows that Bene Gesserit have been planting these stories and have been manipulating their culture, manipulating pretty much the entire galaxy.
Yeah.
To believe in the Kumquat Haagen-Dazs.
Yeah. But we start off the film with some expository or I should say, not even narration, it's just printed on the screen. And this has been 2 years, remember? Or no, 3. So it came out in 2021 and 2024. So it's been 3 years since we saw the first Dune. And they just say, because they know we need to know this, power over spice is power over all.
Yeah.
It would be nice if you reminded us why this is the case, because we don't remember.
The spice must flow. Yeah, we get that. Why?
Yeah. So
because it must flow, the flowing and stuff.
And the spicing and the flowing and the flavin. So starting off...
I know what the secret is. The entire galaxy is populated by English people, and they have got to have spice to make their cooking palatable.
Okay. Maybe if they
come at me, England!
So we start off the film with exposition. Generally, not a good sign.
Not always.
Star Wars managed to pull it off, but that's, So then the first thing they show to us is, oh no, I love the Atreides. They're my closest friends. It's like, oh wait, what?
Yeah, when did that happen? It's in the book, it's made more clear, but in the movie it's like, oh, so why did you lend them all of those hardy har soldiers to murder them?
Yeah, the Harkonnens, yeah. I did, well, in the words of a British comedian whose name is Dara O'Brien, I'd like to say, wait, what? Wait, what? So you're that thing that kind of bothered you in the first place is like, wow, they set up the Atreides to fail. Why did you even set them up? Oh, because you had to kill them for stuff and reasons. Oh, okay, stuff and reasons. Wait, now we find out you actually loved them?
Yeah, in the movie it is not really clear why the Emperor wanted to kill him. In the book it's not entirely clear there either. It's a little more clear. It's mostly because he was too popular and he was afraid the other great houses of the Landsraad, which is a word Herbert made up that I'm really glad they didn't bring into the movie because it looks good on paper. Yeah, something like that. Well, it's like, man, your land is rad.
No. So
I'm sure that's what it is.
we do find out, but not till the end of the picture, at which point we've utterly forgotten that there was a question. We just decided to be confused and kept going, which is, I am the Bene Gesserit, and I did everything. It's me. I told you to do it. I did it because they told me to do it. And okay, whatever.
Yeah,
and I think it's more or less implied that the Bene Gesserit are actually the ones pulling the strings of everybody. They know everybody's little secrets, and
they are. They are the galactic puppet mistresses.
Yeah, but we start off this film, and it's a fight. Basically, we find there's Paul and his mom, and they're pregnant out there fighting against the bad guys. And I can't help but think you need to watch out for those footy prints because you're getting footy prints all over a nice clean desert.
I do like the fact that when the Fremen run across the sand, they don't leave tracks.
Yeah.
And they don't make a sound.
Paul
that was
does.
actually a very cool effect. Yeah, Paul, clomp, clomp, stuff, track.
Yeah.
How will, Atreides twacks.
Well, and what they do is they prove that as good as the fighters as these Kadars are, they know nothing about fighting in the desert. Nothing. And they are literally fished in, to use a term from...
fished in.
Excellent. They literally fish in these amazing super-ass bad guys and decimate. I can't use that word. There's a friend of mine who hates to use it because that just means to split into 10. They utterly destroy these guys. And
that is a huge deal because everybody in the Sardaukar are the basis of the Emperor's power.
Right.
This is repeated over and over again in the book. In fact, in the book, he goes around wearing the uniform of a Sardaukar to remind everyone.
And they're expensive.
They're expensive, and they come from this prison planet, I don't know, Salus Salubria, I forget the actual name.
Yeah.
Then the idea is that in the books, they figure out that the Sardaukar come from this prison planet. People don't know where they come from. They think they're like just recruits.
Wait, they're from Australia?
Yeah.
Oops.
No, they're from Pyrrhus. They're from Pyrrhus, Harry Harrison's Death World. The idea is this world is so harsh and they're treated so badly, they become incredibly tough and strong and dangerous and big and tall and chiseled and bright of eye and taut of buttock.
Yeah.
And somebody figures out, hey, you know another planet that's really hard to live on, where there's a huge population, bigger than we thought there was, who become really badass fighters. So that's the other reason the Emperor is worried about Arrakis, is it could be a source of a fighting force equal to the Sardaukar.
Which is so dumb, because if you just left them alone, everyone would be fine.
You just don't bother them, except they want the damn spice.
Yeah, and even then, there's nothing in this film, there's literally nothing in this film to tell us why spice is so important to anybody. And that we do not see ever do we see the Fremen gathering spice. I think it's literally like the Dust Bowl used to be. It's like, oh, have some beef stew. It's just, it's in there. We can't help it. It's just there.
Yeah, it just gets in everything. That's the way it happens.
So, yeah, whatever.
It's rough and coarse and gets into everything.
And then we see a little something. We see when the Sardaukar or whatever there go down, all the Fremen like glom onto them, and they stick that little tank girl device on them to suck the water out.
Yeah, yep. That's a disturbing thing. It's a big thing in the book too. Human body is like 70 or 80% water.
I know. I gotta pee. Sorry.
You're not going to waste it. So then there's no water there.
Yeah, it's like when the mom's about to have morning sickness. It's like don't let it out, and then she lets it out. She pukes. I'm amazed none of the Fremen are like, you can eat that.
Yeah, you want to? Yeah, they don't mention in the movie. Do you know what else those still suits process?
I'm gonna have to go with poop.
And pee, yes, all your waste products.
Oh, just like, what's his name in Waterworld? Kevin Costner.
Yeah, pretty much. Yep.
Yeah. So we get to this battle fairly early on, and there's nothing that says, oh, by the way, it's been a few months. But apparently it's been a few months, I guess, because, and then there's this scene that I kind of wish wasn't there. It's this scene where Paul is starting to talk about what needs to happen. And he actually is like playing with the idea of going, maybe I'll just say I'm the Messiah, and that will make things work a lot easier. Because It goes against every other scene later in the film of him going, no, I don't want to be this. No Messiah for me. No. So I thought it just makes it confusing to me.
I have to admit, there is a sequence when he flat out says to the Fremen, I am not the Lisan al-Gaib. And Stilgar says, the Mahdi is too humble to say he is the Mahdi. And all I could think of is that sequence in Life of Brian with only the true Messiah denies his divinity. Well, what chance does that give me? All right, I am the Messiah.
I don't see a Messiah, only a mess and a very naughty boy.
Naughty boy.
I actually really like, there's a sense with Bardem's character, Stilgar. Mm-hmm. At first, we're not sure if he's playing a game either, or if he's a true believer. And there's a while there where it feels like it could go either way, and then eventually it tips. I.e., we see that no, he definitely is a real believer, or he takes that final step. Either way, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of nice nuance there, and you know that from this point on, Stilgar is Paul's guy. That's just it.
The thing is, there's a little bit of an undercut there when he's talking to the Council of Sand or whoever they are, and they're all saying, oh, right, will you just give up on this whole Lisan al-Gaib stuff? Who'd you find this time?
Yeah. Oh, another one. Oh, let me guess. He ate sand and didn't die. Okay, whatever. Because who doesn't, you know? We get to that scene where his mom drinks the... piss of life. I'm sorry, the
Kool-Aid
water
of life,
yeah. I mean, yeah. And she, what they don't know is that she's pregnant, which turns out is a bad thing. What it does, apparently, is further awaken the unborn daughter, and the unborn daughter apparently has questions. Hey, what's going on? I can't see in here. Can you tell me what's going on?
I can't move. Can I have a window?
I guess she sees as well as mom or something. I don't know, but
she gets the memories of all of the Reverend Mothers as well. In effect, she is a fetus, but she's an adult mentally. And when she is born, which we never see, which is a real shame, we get one flash forward with Anya Taylor-Joy as Aliyah, where she's, grown up. We don't get to see her as the creepy little 4-year-old who talks like a grown-up, but with a little girl's voice. And quite honestly, I think that would have been really cool.
We do see her in the 84 version, though, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Only they gave her a different voice. The creepy thing about Aliyah is she sounds like a 4-year-old girl. It's just her vocabulary and her grammar is that of a woman.
And that's where we get the space magic. Because let's face it, these movies are heavy with the space magic. Is there anything to explain any of these Bene Gesserit powers, the voice, any of that? No.
Spiciclorians.
Yeah, you heard it here first.
Yep. Spiciclorians.
Spiciclorians, yeah.
Yeah, I also have to say, in the book, the Bene Gesserit magic is a lot more subtle. In this, the voice is like, sleep, and you fall asleep.
In heavenly peace.
She actually does, when they're on the Thopter and they're trying to escape, Jessica basically says, you kill him, once she gets the gag off.
Yeah.
In the book, it's like she just tries to say, oh, don't fight over me, boys. There's enough to go around. She encourages them, entices them to fight. It's not mind control. It's much more subtle influence, which is quite honestly a lot more narratively interesting.
Well, I think it would be more narratively interesting if, after about the 20-minute mark in this film, the voice actually showed up again and did anything until the very end. And even then, it's only Paul getting pissed off. So it's like, are you going to use this or not?
Used a lot.
Is this, you weren't supposed to be taught this? It's a bad thing, but are you going to? Are you not? Okay, well, I guess we'll just move on.
A lot of the Bene Gesserit training is controlling yourself. Biofeedback stuff. There is a thing where no, it is
biofeedback. Which, if you put a quarter in the little machine at the truck stop, you can get a reading. Okay.
No, it's stuff like controlling your breathing, being able to deal with poisons.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing with the water of life is that a Bene Gesserit can convert it into it could make it non-lethal, make it not poisonous anymore.
Okay. Which, sure.
Yeah, but in the movie, it's basically Jedi mind tricks.
Yeah, and seeing along your past lines or every other...
Yeah, that's specific. That's more Paul thing. The prophecy abilities That's very vague with the Bene Gesserit, but Paul is like, well, I can see, I am everything. I can see everything. He basically is the quickening.
I can see clearly now the worm is gone.
Yeah, pretty much.
This would have been a great musical, don't you think? Yeah.
Dune the musical, sure.
Yeah, I'm surprised there isn't. And then
they could have gotten the Spice Girls.
So we have a couple of other problems, I think, and one of them is the Fremen are all like, if we can just give it to the Harkonnens, they'll just leave us alone. I'm like, why do you think that? Because why would
everybody
every
still
house...
needs the damn spice?
Because, it's when you, if you process it, just write it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, but Paul does come up with the same plan in the book and in the movie. It's like, we will put ourselves in a position where we can destroy the spice, because he who destroys a thing controls the thing.
Yeah, but what's he going to destroy it with? Nuclear warheads.
The family atomics.
And when did Atreides have time to hide this little cache of missiles?
92 intercontinental ballistic missiles. They were in my pants. I don't know.
He was literally there for 2 days, and then he got killed. So, And why nuclear? Amongst other things, the nuclear vessels, made me go. It's been 20,000 years since we were around. More. This is as far as we've got.
You don't have like antimatter bombs or null bombs or.
I don't even care about the weapons. It's like we're still settling things the same way, and this will get to the end of the film. I'll get to that a little later, but it's like, really? Like, we can look forward to the same crap for the next 20,000. That's what this book is saying? That's what this movie is saying? Really? Thank you. Because
there's a certain amount of that. There's a certain amount of fatalism in this book. The idea that the problems we have now are the same problems we'll be facing in the future.
Yeah, that's...
false prophets, religious fanatics, struggles for power, greed.
I find that really dispiriting and depressing.
Yeah,
but whatever.
Yeah, no federation here.
I also have to note that sometimes Fremen eyes are bluer than other times.
Yeah. Oops. The whole thing is they're supposed to be completely blue.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just the irises are blue, and sometimes the whites are blue as well.
Yeah. I didn't notice it in the first film. In the second film, it's like, especially when they're more in the shadows, it's like, where'd the blue go? Hello. Yeah, I did like the idea. So in the first film, we see that the Doctor, one of the ways that he's still playing both sides of the fence when he's portrayed the Atreides, is he quickly installs the bite down and poison gas tooth. That is the equipment most double-aught spies have. And he does manage to get a good breath of it off at Baron Harkonnen. And ever since then, we see him a number of times go into this icky bath. And I do like the idea that somehow that has permanently scarred him or
like damaged his lungs or something. Yeah.
I thought that was a nice little subtle thing that they somehow don't come out and just tell you. Which
it's also not in the book. In the book, he avoids it completely.
Oh. I find it better this way.
But,
yeah. I actually like the fact that Paul does realize that there's been a pollution of the Fremen culture by the Bene Gesserit, and it doesn't make him that happy either.
Yeah.
Later on, he still uses it to his benefit, I'm sorry, Bene Gesserit, no, benefit. Yeah, so I think that's odd that the Harkonnen refer to Paul as Muad'Dib. I don't know where they heard that, and I don't know why they don't know it's Paul.
Well, because there's legends going around. They talk about, you got to remember, there are Fremen who are out in the sands, but there are also Fremen who live in the cities.
Yeah.
The Fremen in the sands look down on them, but they're still there, and the stories get spread all over the place.
I guess.
It's the whole idea, again, of legend.
I guess it's the big problem is that they don't really talk about that. Like, are those people there? Are they spying on the Harkonnen? That's what I would think they'd be doing, but we don't know. So I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I will say that as soon as we get to Harkonnen land, it suddenly becomes hot topic torture porn.
Yeah, it's like, why do you live here again?
I don't. Black sun? That's a black hole.
Black hole sun,
won't you come? Knocks away the rain. Black hole sun, black hole sun, won't you come? Black hole sun. Anyway, there's also other parts with Paul fighting his destiny that I think that's a good part of the story.
Yeah.
But we still can't tell how sincere he is about it. You know, his feelings for his father, we know he should have them because they seem to get along pretty well. But he never really shows much passion for that. He just... Revenge pops up because it has to. I don't necessarily feel it. Did you?
No. And they mention that some in the book, but he does process his grief in there, and so does Jessica. Whereas in the movie, it's like, he's dead. Bummer.
Yeah.
We're going to be a little depressed in the tent for one night, and that's it.
Oh, I got this ring, and it's like, it reminds me that I should take revenge. Oh, I'm going to take that off. Which is like, I don't understand the image behind that. But
well, it's a big, clunky ring. Of course you're going to take it off.
Yeah. But here's the thing. If he is fighting for revenge, and he is, then he's not Fremen. And Chani's right. He's using her people. We don't even really see his love for these people. We're just told it's there. And that's one of the things I think where the film lets us down, because what we should see is him embrace the culture as the culture, not as, oh, I can figure this out so I can beat up the bald guy. Which is... Is that also in the book? I don't know.
There's more in the book. In the book, for example, he and Chani have a son.
In the first one?
Yep.
Oh.
In the first book. Who, at the age of about 1, is killed in a Harkonnen raid.
Oh.
So there's a lot of motivation right there. He also, when he kills Jamis in the duel,
okay,
he inherits Jamis's wife and 2 children.
Ah.
So he has, in the book, he's got a lot more connection to the culture.
That might have helped, although the film is 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Yeah, so. I understand why they left some of it out. That would be a lot.
I think
that
what
would
it comes
really
down, I think what it comes down to is that Paul is just not a character we can get inside.
We're not supposed to, I think, because he's a saint. He is, he's a religious figure, in effect. We're supposed to be beyond our understanding.
Well, except let's face it, one of the reasons that he completes all of these bits of the prophecy is because people tell them they exist, and then he does them. You know, except for the one where it's like, only the true chosen one would say he wasn't the chosen one. It's like, okay, yeah, I can't, you got me there. But otherwise, it's like we're following his story. He's the central character of this, but it's just so beyond. That's why I like Chani and the way they changed her. Like you told us that she was not like this, because I understand her the most, and I'm with her. This is all BS, right? And what's going to happen next? It's just getting bigger. At the end of the story, this is just getting away from us even further. It's like, this planet's big enough, these thousands and thousands, apparently millions of people that are hiding in the south and whatever, and now we're taking this to space where there's all these, oh my dear lords, no. I don't know. Like, I don't know I can't even guess what happens next, except that it's huge.
Yeah. I don't know. I only read the first book.
Yeah. I will say the sound mixing was better in the second film. I didn't have to worry about the music blaring at me and not being able to hear people or turning on the
and again,
subtitles.
Visually, the second film is still amazing.
Yeah.
The scenes like Paul walking through the crowd, and the crowd just sort of flows around him.
Yeah.
The conversations he has in the fog with Jessica, the visions even are well done.
Yeah.
Usually those look really dumb in movies.
Well, even the crowd scenes when Fade takes on the 3 last final members of the Atreides house with the thousands and thousands of black and white people is pretty cool. And the fact that everybody there is bald, which I'm guessing is a choice, is not at all creepy.
Maybe something in the water, maybe.
But do we see any
You're
water?
not allowed to have hair. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool things in here. Again, the soundtrack really, really fits what's going on. It underlines it without intruding. It's really quite masterfully done, and I think that Hans Zimmer, I mean, he's one of my partner's favorites for soundtracks. I think he did a really, really good job. He did not, in fact, F it up, so good for him.
Yeah.
But we got this big story.
Yep.
How does it end? With a fist fight. Yes, I know they have blades in them, but it's a fist fight.
It ends up as a fight. By the way, now maybe I got this wrong. It looked to me like Fade stuck his knife in Paul's side.
Shoulder.
And then when Paul wins, he
Well, what he does is Paul gets the knife in his hand. He's grabbing Fade's knife with his hand and redirects it to his shoulder.
Oh, okay.
So he can then shove his sword in vitals.
Got it.
Yeah. So, but still, like all of this grandeur, all of this folding of space, all of this spice, all of this culture, all of this blah, 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 comes down to a fist fight. And I cannot tell you how tired I am of that.
Yeah, it's gotten awfully old, and they do it in so many movies.
Does it happen in the book?
Yeah, it really does.
Okay.
And again, the Fate is acting as the Emperor's champion, and when he wins, basically it's like, I'm Emperor now because I stabbed a guy.
Yeah.
Well, partly that, and I've killed all your soldiers, and I will freaking murder you. And his daughter steps up and goes, okay, I'll be your wife. Don't kill Daddy.
Yeah. Well, and keeping him around's pointless. He's just going to sit there in the back and shrivel. So, yeah.
Yeah, and again, difference in the book is Chani knows, he's like, okay, I'll be the concubine. Just the way that was Jessica's role, because she was officially the Duke's concubine. He wouldn't marry her either, because it's a very Queen Elizabeth thing to do. If you remain unmarried, there's a political tool you have that people think, oh, well, if I can get one of my family members married to him, blah, 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 blah.
Ah, I see. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad they changed that bit of things, because Chani is very much her own woman, and she's very strong, and I really appreciate her. And I'd like to think that somehow she ends up controlling Arrakis, and when Paul comes back at some point, she's like, no, you can't come in. That'd be great.
I am not sure, but you notice the final shot of the movie is her.
Yeah.
Not Paul. She's the last thing we see.
Well, and quite honestly, we're more interested in her at this point.
Yeah, we can identify with her more.
Yeah.
We're still not sure what kind of game Paul's playing.
But you know what else we don't know? We don't know what kind of game we're playing. Do we actually... We've been hitting this film pretty hard, but did we actually like it? And more importantly, how did our listeners feel? So let's get to...
Yeah.
Poll question. So Max, you're in charge of the poll question. We asked, did you like Dune and Dune 2? Or if you didn't see it, why not? What did people have?
Well, we got Seth Jacobs telling us, I thought Austin Butler was surprisingly good, especially since I have fond memories of Sting in the David Lynch version. Really?
Okay.
Fine.
Yeah.
Sure, why not? Degsy O'Brien, painter and crime solver, says, sure, I'll pause in my work as a freelance detective and pizza specialist to throw my opinion in on this. Well done, Degsy. Basically, I'm conflicted about Villeneuve's Dune duology. I certainly appreciate the advances in special effects and technology making the different planets, the worms, the clothing, and the devices feel real, and the action sequences were certainly epic enough and not looking too green-screened, but other parts of the two movies disturb me. I never read the original novels, but while Villeneuve's adaptations certainly feel like they're closer to the source material than Lynch's effort, yeah, I'd go with that, I question if that's a good thing, as the source material was a 1960s Western white guy who heavily appropriated Islamic culture.
Yes.
Lynch's take on the Fremen retained some of those elements, but otherwise kept them on the level of some generic alien race you'd see on an episode of Star Trek. I don't remember anyone asking, what is Kiss? But Villeneuve directly and deliberately adopts elements such as prayer mats, the script, terms such as jihad and others. Oh, I guess someone does say jihad. While also avoiding using actors from that same culture.
Only a lot.
And then there's the tired old white savior trope, which we mentioned once again, though I appreciated that Villeneuve chose to focus so much on Zendaya's character, Chani, watching with growing disquiet and disapproval the sculpting of this privileged white alien kid into a messiah over her people. One that was leading them not into a happy ending like Lynch's version, but a much bigger war than they'd already faced, and her refusing to be part of it and leaving at the end. And on a completely facetious note, Villeneuve should have had Walken's Emperor break into a dance onto the walls of his palace. We already mentioned the Fat Boy Slim, but well done. Thank you, Degsy.
Yes.
Brian Mundo says, Dune was slow, but I knew it was building to the second, so I stuck with it and watched it. I liked Dune too. Good amount of action and chaos, and the visuals were really cool. Okay. Nick Hoffman says, I was completely relieved to see the David Lynch version overwhelmed by this version. I really, really like it. No, that's direct.
Neat.
Lord of the Sand Penguins, Vince, tells us, and sorry, Vince, I may have to trim a little of this because he had things to say, and a lot of them, and they were all good, but I never would have guessed Dune as the 300th episode. I have long been a fan of Dennis Villeneuve as a local filmmaker, so I might be biased, as I think, like many of his films, Dune Parts 1 and 2 were visually stunning, and the sound work and all the technical stuff was pretty much some of the best stuff out there these days. I have also read the Dune trilogy at least 4 times, Dune itself 5 or 6 times, and I played the 1970 board game. I also read the 4th book, which was fine, and was fine with it, but nothing after that, so not a super fan. Part 1 really felt like the book to me overall, but I wasn't confused by the accelerated timeline in some areas. I don't know if he means he was confused. Paul becomes part of the Fremen in what must be weeks or months and not years, and Lady Jessica is still pregnant at the end of the second film, so no Alia. That's a good point. The second film began to wildly move away from the book in ways I did not expect. Alia's scene with the Baron at the end of Dune was something I was very much looking forward to see happening in this version. I agree with that. It's much cooler that she kills the Baron.
Oh.
Yeah, she kills him with the Gom Jabbar.
Oh.
It's actually a very nice touch.
Is it like an Anwoon?
Kind of, or a Lirpa.
Lirpa. Moopsie.
Hi. My bones! Highlights on Dune 1 and 2 for me are the visuals, the way they presented the voice, which is jarring in a good way, and how they managed to get across the dark sun on Getty Prime, the Harkonnen homeworld. They didn't overuse the worms or get too messianic in what is quite the messianic storyline to begin with. I thought they got across that Paul is not a hero, but someone who decides the best way forward is to accept his monstrous future. Cool. We also had from our own cheese boy, l'homme de fromage, Ned, as a study in contrast vis-a-vis Vince's verbosity, really I can't compete, I thought New Dune was fine. The visuals are nice, but a lot of it makes no sense within the fiction of the world. What scale are we working on again? And it doesn't do a good job of capturing Frank Herbert, weirdness as the David Lynch movie does.
I reach.
Personally, I've always found the idea of Dune to be more compelling than the actual book or movie itself. Maybe that's a product of living in a post-Dune world in which ecologically minded SF runs rampant. That is a good point. I think I read Kim Stanley Robinson's Red Mars, Green Mars, Blue Mars trilogy first, which for my money does the sweeping generational epic a lot better, but that was written in the 90s and could take advantage of our knowledge of spaceflight. Remember, Dune was published in 65, predating the moon landings by 4 whole years. Also a very good point.
Yeah, except I don't think it really comes to in any bearing on the movies, but...
Dune is certainly better than the modern, conceptual, instant SF classics that Avatar or Prometheus or even Interstellar, but Inception, Her, and let's face it, Arrival are a full tier above New Dune. And Dune isn't fun enough to stand with the likes of Snowpiercer, Dread, or Pacific Rim, so it falls short in the popcorn movie slot as well, though the less said about that popcorn bucket, the better. Good point.
Yeah, not so much a popcorn
I'd rate it around
bucket
Blade Runner 2049 in that it's promising yet flawed movie. That almost was something great, but misses the mark, mainly due to comparison with other better movies. Fascinating.
Wow. People had thoughts, and I bet that's not everybody.
Matt Reisman says, I found Dune incredibly poorly paced, and the way the dialogue was mixed made it very difficult for me to focus on the film. Where have we heard this?
Me.
My attention kept slipping away. The movie was gorgeous, but it took me 3 tries to get all the way through.
Oops.
Wow. I started Dune 2 after hearing it was better paced, but I just couldn't find myself caring, so I stopped halfway through. Paul isn't a sympathetic protagonist, and rooting for a fascist god king isn't really something I feel up to at this point in time.
Oh.
Okay. I know these movies are beloved, but I can't help but focus on the aspects which speak to larger issues with the industry as a whole. Dialogue mixing, desaturation, flat performances, overly long films, etc., that really bother me. They actively make the movies more difficult to watch without adding much, if anything. Wow. Sharp, but kind of hard to disagree with.
Kind of very hard.
George Saulnier says, I did not like Dune, so have not seen Dune 2. Especially annoyed by the Zendaya Terrence Malick shots. Also too Zack Snyder-y. Well,
I don't know if I'd agree with that, but
Interesting. Tyler Stewart says, I loved both movies and am eagerly awaiting the third. They are the best adaptation of the book so far. That's also true.
He also owns a science fiction bookstore, so he probably knows.
Dr. Steve Kellner says, I went into some detail in my March 17th post and in the comments, going back and forth with you, actually. In a nutshell, Part 1 was excellent and faithful. Part 2 simplified it to being a hero's journey with provisos instead of the real story, which was the disaster a religious hero brings to a civilization, and it left out most of the science fiction elements. Prescience, what the spice does, why it is critical, what the Bene Gesserit are doing, how the Spacing Guild works, why the Sardaukar and Fremen were so tough, etc. So it became just a sad superhero story with weird but pretty sets. Ooh, I think Part 3 is intended to close the story, but he seriously altered the plot of Part 2 to leave Part 2 open, and it feels as if he did it deliberately to force the studio to fund a third.
Huh.
Oof. Interesting.
Very interesting.
Roland the Headless Thompson Hardy says, I enjoyed both films, however the first Dune was a little weaker. Really? The characters, in my view, were never solidified in their roles as they were in Dune 2.
I can see that.
Margaret Trouth says, I am more than 50 years old, and I have tried to read Dune 3 or 4 times over the course of my life, and have never been able to give a damn about it. Ouch. And I have given myself not give a damn about this classic work of SF anymore. Not bothering with seeing the 3rd or 4th adaptation of it was easy. Wow.
Then we had one more, didn't we?
We did, but that one, we will hear later, I believe.
No, right now.
Or unless you want to read the transcript.
No, we're going to hear it right now.
Hello, this is Doris Simplemeier, and I knew that this was a very important question, so I thought I would give you an answer. As to Dune and Dune 2, I have not seen these particular films. I heard that the first one in particular was very long and very boring, and I'm not really interested in anything very long and very boring, unless, of course, it's very important, in which case I might actually maybe take a peek. But I didn't think this was very important, so I have not. So that is my answer for your question as to whether or not Dune, or I haven't seen Dune 2 either, because if one was boring, then probably both are going to be boring. I am sure that both you, Max, and you, Mike, are very important people, and I will be listening to great interest to hear what you have to say about these 2 movies. That's it for me. Goodbye.
Wow. So we
Thank
got
you.
a lot of great essays, and we got a little phone call, a very interesting phone call. Thank you, nameless person. We know who you are.
Yeah. Yes, we hear the cue of your footsteps.
Lots of really great things people said, both sides. Liked it, loved it,
Remarkably
didn't like
divisive. I was surprised. I mean,
it. Yeah.
People have very strong opinions in both directions on these movies.
Yeah, I was really glad to hear them. But Max, now it's our turn, because this is our show and it's our job.
The finish.
You've seen both films twice now, right?
Yes, indeed.
What do you think of as a whole? Well, actually, quickly, did you like Dune 2 or not?
I did. I like Dune 1 better.
Okay. Now, as a whole, as one big story, and also if you would comment on, please, its adaptation. Like, is it a good adaptation of the book? Is it not a good adaptation? Or what did you come away with?
As a whole, I think it's interesting. I do think it loses steam. I think it does become, I like Steve Kellner put it, a sad superhero story toward the end. But I think it has a lot of interesting elements, and the characters are interesting. The action sequences are great. Overall, I think it's good. I don't think it's amazing. As an adaptation of the book, I got to agree, it is the best adaptation so far. That's not saying a lot.
Yeah, well, I didn't see that miniseries, but...
But I have to say, as an adaptation, it's decent, but it kind of skirts away from some of the major elements, which is way more into the idea of the religious prophet and the idea of the holy war and basically the dangers of religion, which I can get why people want to dodge that at this point. That's setting yourself up for a lot of controversy.
Yeah.
But what about you? What did you think of the second movie? And, well, actually, no, what did you think of this thing as a whole? I mean, you don't know the adaptations. So.
I do not. This first time I saw the second film, I was Like, for the first hour or so after I saw it, I liked it. And then the more I thought about it, the less I liked it, because I realized I didn't have any idea why anyone was doing anything. We don't know anything about the spice. I'd forgotten that they'd even explained it at all 3 years ago in the previous film. And just putting up at the beginning of the film, control of the spices, control of everything, is not enough. I don't get it. So I don't know anything about guild navigators. I don't know, whatever. I don't get it. And part of me is also just like, leave them alone. Everything's fine. Then we don't have a story. Okay, well, maybe we're better off that way.
Maybe so.
And I didn't understand, like, is Paul the Messiah? Is he not the Messiah? Is this all made up? Is it literally just prophecy making itself come true because somebody bothered to say, you know, if you do this, you're going to be the guy? Because it kind of seems that way. And quite honestly, there is this distance between the audience and the characters, besides the fact that it takes place tens of thousands of years ahead of us, which should be incomprehensible. We see these people that don't feel like us, that are beyond us, doing these things, solving problems the same damn dumb way that we're doing it now. Nothing that way has changed, but this is like it's like when you watch Upstairs, Downstairs, or the other
Downton Abbey.
Thank you, Downton Abbey, but we're just watching the rich people. The whole point of that is that we're seeing both sides of things. And sadly, I don't find that we know enough about the Fremen to really care that much, except you should leave them alone. The second time I saw it, I actually liked it better than the first time. And I think it held together a little better. It's still very well paced for its length. Both films are very well paced. I was interested the whole way. I think as a whole, I'm going to go ahead and agree with you. I think it's good. I don't think it's great. Visually, musically, performance-wise, it's very well done. But in the end, we have a protagonist we don't really like. And in fact, we spend most of the second film learning to like less and less. Until at the end, he's going to leave the planet and cause trouble for a whole bunch of other people. And not... I guess he's got the Harkonnens to leave them alone. But, I mean, quite honestly, I'm kind of wondering if Stilgar couldn't have achieved the same thing. Yeah. Except that people didn't think of him as the leader, so...
I do also have to say, and I know this is blasphemy, I'm not a huge fan of the book. I like the book, I respect it, I see how it's influenced things, but I don't really enjoy reading it. I don't think he uses language very well. The characters tend to sound the same. And the way he plays around with inventing his own words and his own grammar gets on my nerves.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you want a good time and you've read Dune, read I believe it's the Harvard or the National Lampoon parody of Dune called Dune, Doon. It kind of nails a lot of this.
Or go watch Lawrence of Arabia, because this is basically Lawrence of Arabia in space. Right?
Without worms.
Yeah, I mean, you could also, spice could be oil, and it could be, a whole, this could be something it doesn't honestly need to take place in science fiction. It really doesn't. It could be us and white people and Native Americans, same thing, except we'd get stuck with the stupid white savior, which we're all sick of. So, the one thing I'll say is the story was written in the 60s, and some of these things weren't overused tropes then, but they are now. Yeah. And if you're going to adapt that, you need to address that. And I honestly don't think that Villeneuve does. And yeah, so if you want to avoid Dune because it's too long, you're fine. I think it is reflecting one of the major books of science fiction, whether you like it or not. And sometimes it's good to know about that stuff. I think there's some great performances, great visuals, etc. But it's not a film that I think I'll probably ever watch again. Either one of them. But
you know what we will watch, or at least listen to? Your answers to a new poll question.
Oh, awesome! A new poll question. Does it have anything to do with Dune?
No. Actually, this one I came up with after watching the Fantastic Four movie.
Oh, dear.
Yes. What movie that was actually released do you think should never have been released?
Oh, dear.
What movie would the world be better off without?
Ooh.
And you have a number of ways, including one new way, to answer this question. You can send us an email at us@maxmikemovies.com. You can go to our website, maxmikemovies.com, and leave a comment. You can find us on the buck face over in Zuckerberg world and leave a comment under Max Mike Movies. Or you can find us on the podcast app of your choice that have existed throughout time and in the collective unconsciousness of all the Bene Gesserit. And You can call us at our super special secret awesome phone number and leave a voicemail, and we will use it on the show. That number again, 617-398-7266. Operators are sitting by at 617-398-7266. Well, that ends our 300th episode.
Hey, we couldn't do this without you. Well, we could, but it wouldn't be nearly as much fun.
Kind of be pointless. Yeah.
We hope to continue to bring you content like Bumpy the Wonder Pony, Zangief's Ass, Deep House, Rogue Warfare 3, the Spanus, Bumpy Puck Serial, and much, much more in episodes to come. All we ask is that you wait for us and the Lambda Zone. And while you're there, you can think about our next series. Max, do you have any information on that?
Yes, I do. You know, people make mistakes. We get things wrong. Don't hurt me, baby. Don't leave me, baby. Oh, baby, give me one more chance. Sure, you don't want to. But you must. Please.
Are you getting to a point?
What point?
How should I know? My head hurts.
Yes, we are going to do an entire series, which we are calling Give Me One More Chance, on movies that we have seen like once and didn't like, but think maybe we should give them another try. And what are we starting off with, Mike?
Well, spoiler, it might be more than once. I lied. There's a film and it has this actor in it, and it's an actor I don't like. And the reason I don't like this actor is because all this actor does is save the world from whatever, and basically preen about how wonderful he is, because that's what he does. The actor in question...
Judi Dench?
Yes, that is the he that I was talking about. No, I'm talking about Tom Cruise. Ooh. Yeah, I'm not a big Tom Cruise fan, and generally, I think when I go to see his films, which I don't tend to do anymore, I'm already pre-poisoned. I'm just like, I'm not going to like this because Tom Cruise in it. And there might be films that maybe I actually would like them if I just gave them one more chance. But I think that in general, that's probably something you'd find in a Minority Report, not really in a big discussed percentage. It's really going to be...
Nice shoehorn there.
I was thinking more like a sledgehammer, but yeah. So next week, we're going to take another look at Minority Report. Why? Because Mikey doesn't like it. And maybe if he, having done 300 episodes of a movie review show, he'll find ways that he does like it. We don't know. That's the point. So next week, tune in.
Yes. Check out this life serial of a movie.
Yes. And we promise a much shorter episode than this week's.
Yeah.
So Minority Report. Catch it.
Start your day the Bumpy Pucks way, made without alpha, oats, and hay. Have a bowl, you'll never frown. Keep an extra box around.
Sugar frosted Bumpy Pucks. Our ponies work twice as hard, so you only have to chew half as long. Or something. Oh, and vitamins.
This has been a co-production of The Voice of Max and The Movie Wrench.
This part of the show brought to you by Bumpy Pucks Cereal. Bumpy Pucks. When you need to poop right now.